Alrighty, so I'm going to jump into Photoshop and just make a basic document. Yeah, that looks good. You know about the brush tool. So you choose a brush, and up at the top, these are like some predefined brushes that you can work with. I think there's even one that's a star brush. I don't see it on here.
Flower brushes.
Got flower brushes. If you want to add on a brush, little dilly bob up here. Down at the very bottom, here's some different, so there's natural brushes, special effects brushes, square. So I'm just going to choose, like, say, natural brushes. When I choose that, it's going to ask you, do you want to replace all the brushes or do you want to append them? You always want to append them. Never want to replace them, else you'll lose the rest of your brushes. Now when you go back to up here, they'll be appended down here at the bottom. And it's just more, it looks like these natural type textures. I'll tell you what, we'll just work with, I've already got this one selected. So this one's kind of just a textured kind of brush. Well, for you, oh, let's do it the real way. I'll show you how to make a brush. We'll even work in, I'll open up Illustrator and show you how you can do that. So to make a star. Come on, Illustrator. Okay. So y'all know Illustrator. Competent in that. Illustrator has a star tool. So I'm just going to do a cliche star right here in the center. Not going to worry about the size of it. Just going to copy it over. Make sure it has copy. Jump back into Photoshop. I'm going to paste it into Photoshop. Now when you paste a vector object into Photoshop, it's got to rasterize it somehow. And so that's why it's giving you this little choices to choose from. Smart objects, pixels, paths. I'm just going to use pixels. Plain old layer that's going to be in. It's going to ask me to size it. That's okay. I'll make it relatively small. Lock it in. So there's my little star that I'm going to work with. Also notice it's on its own little layer. Here's how you can make a brush in Photoshop. I'm going to highlight or select just the star itself. Actually, if you wanted to select it, I can hold down the Command key and click on it, and it'll select it, everything that's in that layer. With it selected, you can go to, let's see, I think, Image. I hadn't done this in a while. Maybe it's under Edit. There it is. Define Brush Preset. I think that's it. Haha, yes, there we go. So define brush preset, it's going to ask you to give it a name. I'm just going to call this star brush. And we'll say OK. Now, when I choose my brush, I can go back up here. At the very bottom, there's my star brush. So I've got it. I can start. Let's see. I'll put it on a new layer. I can now paint sort of with stars. You know, I can click all around. That'll get me halfway there, but that's not exactly what you want. Let me show you how to really get the best of it. To be able to control your brushes beyond just painting straight lines like that, at the very top, there's this little icon. When you click on it, it'll open up a palette on the right-hand side. This is your brushes preference palette. In this palette, you can control anything you want to do with the brush. By default, all the things that are on the left-hand side you can click on. The brush shapes and tips. At the very bottom, it'll give you an idea of what it looks like. So if I spaced it out, increase the spacing, now I can space out my brush and get it to be put around. So now it's more spaced out, but still in line. Still, we're getting closer. But that gives me a better idea, closer what I want. Let's take it a step further. I'll go to, say, Shape Dynamics. Under here, I can get it to get larger and smaller. So I'm going to zoom out so you can see the whole thing. You get an idea down here at the bottom what it looks like. Under Shape Dynamics, it'll adjust the size of my brush kind of on the fly. So now when I use it, you can see they're getting larger and smaller at random. And you can choose a minimum diameter. So I want to make sure that some are larger, some are smaller, that type of thing. All of this is under Shape Dynamics. Let's take it even a step further. So I got shape dynamics turned on. Let's make it scatter about. So I don't want them to go just in a line. I'm going to turn on scattering. And I can control the size of the scatter. You get an idea down at the bottom, you know, how off it'll all be. So I've got that. You can even, adjusting the count will give you more scattering. So in one click, now I'm really filling up the sky with a bunch of stars. Pretty cool? Very cool. You can even make it smaller. And very quickly I can fill the sky with pixie dust, everything else that you need from there. You can play around with adding texture to it. I don't think you'll need it from here. You can actually do two brushes in one, so it'll look like you can have one brush and another brush mixed together. You can play around with the color dynamics. So if you wanted a good star field, I'm going to fill this in with, let me see here. With black. So I've got my night sky. I've got, instead of white, let's choose slightly yellow. So I've got that. Also, I'm going to drop my opacity just a little bit. Most stars aren't 100% opaque. Still that there. By choosing the color dynamics, I can get it to shift a little bit. So I've got it set to this one yellow. I want some to be a little more yellow, a little less yellow, back and forth. And that's where this foreground, background color shifting will allow me to do. Ooh, we can even do brightness. That's a new one. Now let's see what happens when I paint stars on the background sky. Voila, very quickly. So if you wanted to paint them in an angel shape, just paint out whatever shape that you need. You can adjust the size of the brush, so if you did want larger stars, you can quickly add larger stars in that as well. Cool? Yeah. And you can do that with any brush. The best thing is you can save this as a brush now. So like you made your brush just the default, it works like a regular brush. To save the brush, I believe it's this little icon down at the very bottom. I'm going to click on it. It's going to ask you to rename it again, so I'm just going to call this Star Brush Effects. And so now you've got another brush down at the very bottom. So there's your first star brush. Here's the one with all the special effects. You can reuse it over and over again. Pretty cool? So, all right. Do y'all know how to do layer masking? I know I showed you how to do a layer mask last time. Y'all know what a layer mask is? Okay. Layer masking is like the ultimate way of blending something. Let's see. Let's close this one out, not save it. So let's say I had this picture of this baseball player, and I wanted it to blend with this picture of the baseball. So one image going back into the other. We'll open these both up into Photoshop. What I need to do is to put them all on the same document. So I'm going to just drag him into yonder. So in my layers palette, I've got the baseball player on top of the background layer. All good. I'm even going to scoot him over a little bit so we can see just him. Close this out. Now you can use your eraser tool, and with the eraser tool you can just kind of erase away the background. The downside to this is once those pixels are erased, you can't undo it. You can't go back. So if you make a mistake, well, you got to start all over. Or if you wanted to have a little more control with it, it doesn't give you the best control. So I'm going to undo that. Instead, use what's called the layer mask. To make a layer mask, look on your layers palette. I'm going to add one to layer 1. So I've got it selected. This little button right here is going to add another icon to that layer. Here's what the fun thing about this. Anything you paint in here is going to erase it away within that layer. The only thing you have to remember about painting in here is you can only use black and white or shades of gray. So black and white. So I'm going to use my paintbrush tool. Foreground color is black. So wherever I paint black in this icon, sorry I'm zooming a lot, it's going to erase it away. Now I still got your star brush. We'll just use a regular one. So now you can see as I paint, I'll zoom in. You can see it's adding on to here. And I'm erasing away. I'll make it even bigger so we can go quicker. Getting all along his edge. Oops, I've gone too far. I've accidentally erased too much. Doing that on purpose. But you can see wherever I paint in this area, it's erasing away on this area. Here's the best part about using a layer mask. all I have to do is swap to white. So I'm going to swap my foreground background color. So now I'm painting with white. Wherever I paint white, it brings it back. It's like an undo erase. And so this gives you a lot more control over what you're doing to be able to blend back and forth from there.
Cool.
Real cool? Very cool.
Question.
Yeah.
I thought about doing some watermarking. How would I watermark an image?
Okay.
It's like we can see the outline of the baseball player. You can actually see the baseball behind him, like
Okay.
through his skin and stuff.
You can do it simply by, I would just drop the opacity of the layer you're working on. You can do that in the layers palette. So I've chosen his layer. Here's the opacity of it. You can click and just scale it down. And so when I do that, you can see he's fading in the background that way. Is that what you're looking for?
I think so. What about if you?
That's cool.
Bring it back
Is there
up.
a way to make it like more? Like he's got a lot of highlight. What if you don't really want all the highlight? Is there a way to simply just make it where you're seeing the contour of his face?
Contour of his face. Just
or
the
contour of the image, but just not without all the highlights and the shades and stuff.
This is the way I would do it. Good challenge.
Almost like when you look through a $20 bill or something, you see that image in the. It's kind of in between.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Let's play around with some of the layer modes that you can work with. So right now I'm in normal. Is that kind of getting it? You know, it's looking at the lights and darks of it. Screen would do the same thing, so it's kind of picking up some of the. You still got your highlights, but it's only affecting the darks. Is that doing it?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Couldn't you also adjust the picture, like that picture manually or whatever, up in adjustments and change it?
I may be thinking like if you turn it to black and white.
Okay.
You can do that. It might have to.
Okay.
If you were to turn that to black and white, you can change the opacity.
Here's how you can turn just one layer to black and white rather than like the whole document. You have a palette called your adjustments palette. And I'll drag it off here. So look for adjustments. Under here, one of the adjustments, there it is, black and white. So I'm going to click on it. And right now I've got my whole image is turned just black and white. Okay? If I just want it to affect the baseball player and I want the background to have color to it, you need to create what's called a, technically it's a clipping mask. I'll show you what it is. Hold down your Option key and put your cursor in between the two layers and see how it changes. The Option key held down. When I click on it, anything, see it's got the little the arrow on that layer, anything that's below this one, it's only affecting that layer. So when I zoom out, his image is black and white. The background still has its color.
Only directly below it?
Only thing that's directly below it. And you can have multiple things. So if I wanted to say, adjust the levels just on this one, I can click that. So now I'm, and oh yeah, here's the little properties to it. If I did everything, it's going to adjust the levels on the entire thing, blow it out. Maybe this will kind of give you the effect that you want. So I need to make a clipping mask of that. Hold down the Option key, click on it. Now it's only affecting that layer rather than the whole image itself. It's something to play around with.
Right.
You could change, change this layer to multiply, and you kind of get that kind of ghosting effect. That's kind of what you're going for. Well, all I did was adjust the levels. You can play around with the how dark or not it is from there.
And that's just multiplying? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I changed this layer to multiply. And it keeps all your dark pixels, gets rid of all your light pixels. That's what multiply does. Screen gets rid of all your dark pixels, keep your light pixels, those type of things. Here's the coolest thing about using a layer mask. Let's say I had this guy, I wanted to put, yeah, go for it.
That last part, was that did you have to do it black and white before it did that effect?
Nope, you can do it at any time. You can do it with color as well. I can go back and show you one-on-one more to get your style. So let's say I wanted to put this guy on this background. Here's the quick and dirty way of making a clipping mask. Rather than, so I've got him on this layer. I'm going to make a clipping mask. No, excuse me, a layer mask. So I'm going to click on that icon, got it there, grab my brush. Remember, whatever I paint black, rather than painting all the way around him, it's going to take forever to do that. So I'm going to back up one more. Before I make the layer mask, I'm going to select him. Y'all know about the selection tools? Quick selection? Quick selection is like the best improvement Photoshop ever made. It was worth upgrading to CS5 to get that one. With this one, I'm just going to click and highlight his image. And I'm kind of purposely not doing a good job. You can see I'm getting the background. I'll delete that. But mainly I just want to get him selected. So I've got that. Let's get his arm. Get this other arm. Okay. So for the most part, I've got him selected. I can do a better job on his fingers. Down here, I'm off by a little bit. I'll show you why in just a second. So with him selected, now when I choose Layer Mask, watch what will happen with the background. Doop. It automatically recognizes, hey, whatever's selected, you want to keep that, and everything else goes black. Takes it all out. So in just a few clicks, you've taken out the entire background. You don't have to paint around the entire thing to redo it. Then I can go back in. Oh, looks like I left off part of his butt. Go back in, paint that in, clean up. Exactly what I need.
That's the white.
That's with the white. Actually, what I'm doing, if you hit the X key, so I've got my brush selected, the X key will toggle back and forth. So I don't have to keep going back and forth over here to really handy, yeah. So this one I've got in black, hit the X key, now I can start painting in white. All it's doing is swapping out the foreground and the background. So in just a few clicks I can clean up this image. Now I've got him completely painted out. And I've also got my opacity. Make sure your opacity is at 100%. I don't have mine. So, got him done that way as well. If I wanted to fade him, grab your gradient tool. If you don't see your gradient tool, it's usually hiding under the paint bucket. With the gradient tool, just kind of either a white to black or a black to transparent. Remember, I'm only working this layer. I can fade him by clicking and dragging out a gradient, and it's just getting a little gradient fade to what he's doing. Because all I'm doing is adding that black gradient to this layer mask. Pretty cool. Here's kind of another thing that I use a lot. Let's say you wanted to have text and you wanted an image that's kind of behind that's showing through the text. Does that make sense? Like you had your name or you had something, so let me create a new document. We'll go from there. Oh, I need a bigger document. All right. Got palettes all over everywhere. We'll give us a background. Make a new fill layer of a gradient. I can just like choose a pre-made gradient. And that's pretty cool. Okay. So let's say I typed out the word puppy. So I've got puppy typed out. It's on here. And I wanted to put a picture of a puppy inside of these letters. So let's see how our layers are actually set up. I've got a text layer, I've got my gradient layer that I've put on top of there. Let's find an image of a puppy. Which one's cute? Let's do this guy. Let's see. I'll just save this image to the desktop. Okay, we're good. There we go. There he is. So I'm going to put his image, I'm going to drag him into Photoshop. Put him on top of here. So he's on his own layer. I'll even make him a little bit bigger so he takes up the whole thing. Okay, here's the fun part. So I was showing you about the clipping mask. Layer 1 is the picture of the puppy. Underneath it is the text. Hold down the Option key and click. Now, whatever is on this layer is being covered up by that layer. And so that's how you can very easily, very quickly add, of course you can't see them, it's not enough. But what it's doing is it's masking out everything that's on the lower layer is masking out that's on the layer that's above it.
What did you quickly do?
That's called the clipping mask. All I had to do was hold down your Option key and click right there. If you do it again, it'll undo it. or take it away. Well, no, it won't. But anyway, the best part is if you wanted to add any of the effects to it, I can double click on the text layer. Now I can add, say, a drop shadow to the text. I can add a stroke to the text. There we are, stroke. Make it stand out a lot more. And it doesn't affect the image that's underneath it. What else y'all got? What other questions? What do you want to do?
I want to know how to make a, like take an image, like a picture that I've taken and make it watercolor.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay. There's a couple of ways you can do that. Let's see. Let's take our picture of a puppy.
Kind of, like turn it into watercolor.
Okay. You can simulate that a couple of ways. So I've got my image of my puppy. Got his layer selected. There's a filter at the top. Filter and... oh, maybe it's stylized. They've changed this up. There used to be an artistic filter. Filter gallery. Perfect. Under filter gallery, off to the side, these are all different types of ways you can make an image be distorted. One of the artistic ones, I believe, is, there it is, watercolor. So you choose watercolor, and it will start to kind of crackle up and distort the pixels in a way. You've got options to it, so you can have the more detail, let's make it less detail. So less detailed, maybe a little more texture, or less texture. Is that getting closer to what you want? Maybe not. This is one of those things you play around with. Let's look at, say, palette knife. So this will kind of soften up the image itself.
I feel like this is cheating.
No, it's not. You can. I will say this. You can tell an amateur graphic designer by how much filters they use. If they use tons of filters, that means they don't know what they're doing. They're just trying to make it look like something different. A good graphic designer knows what they want, knows how to get to it.
Right.
So yeah, filters kind of are cheating, but they, here's one makes it look like rough pastels. If you need that effect and you need it quickly, it does it for you. Another
Chinese style, or Chinese style watercolor. I'll show you.
Okay. Another way you could do it is there's a cool brush. It's underneath your regular paintbrush called the Art History brush. Not the History Art brush, the Art History brush. With this one, if you look up at the options, you can choose between different styles. I'll keep it, let's do tight and long, and tolerances. When you click over the image, it will start to kind of waterize it. And whatever pixel you go over, you can see how I chose tight and long. You can do dabbing, and so it kind of creates that little effect over that image. And so very quickly, you've got kind of a painted effect. And this was put in there just because a lot of people try to do paintings in Photoshop, and this is just a way of cheating to do that, but it gives you a little more control. Let's look at some of the...
Is there a way
Loose
to,
curl.
whoa.
Yeah, you can really mess something up once you get into it. But the more you do it, and you zoom back out, yeah, it becomes very abstract. So if that's the effect you're going for, here's the thing in painting. If you want to draw someone's attention to a particular area, have the background be very, very abstract like this. You would then choose one of these tighter, like tight and short styles, go in on their face with a tight and short, and that'll clean that area up. Or loose and medium. And that'll bring back your details that you're working on as well. Make sense? Is that...
What tool is that?
And that tool is called the Art History brush. It's located underneath your regular brush, not the history brush, Art History brush.
Is there a way to like multiply it, or kind of what you did earlier, and you take out, you just take out the color and you have the outline of the dark, and then you can like paint in it?
Okay, so let's see. I'm going to make a copy of this layer. So we want to take out the color. So I'm going to choose one of my adjustments.
Look at your screen.
Sure. Sorry. I know it's huge up there. Let's make it a black and white. So just that layer. That's all good. Black and white. The levels, and this is going to have a, make sure your properties palette is open. Under the properties, anything that's on, this one controls the lights, this one controls the darks, and this is your gray values. So what we're going to do is we're going to bump up all the lights, turn down all the darks, and so now you can start to see it's getting that posterized effect. This is where you could adjust from there. So let's say I wanted to, and there's a lot of playing around with it. It's art, for crying out loud. But the closer you get to them, the more black and white it's getting. Is this close to what you're looking for?
You
And then-
multiplied his.
Oh, okay, yeah, and I multiplied it. And you want to paint in just the black area,
Right, like
Okay.
a coloring.
like a coloring book. Okay. Okay, so we'll.
Hey, Mr. Ivan,
Mhm.
how did you want us to turn in that assignment from Monday?
I'll tell you what, y'all hold on to it. I don't have access to y'all's Moodle, so I'll let Mr. Taylor collect it.
Just
So
want us
yeah,
to email it to him and bombard him with email?
you good? Yeah, I'm sure he would enjoy it. Hey, we're still working. Send him an email of everything, or hold on to it and he'll collect it next time. I would make another layer on top of this one. So layer 1, do a clipping mask with that one. So I only want it to affect this layer. Let's see if this will work. Grab my regular brush. I've got yellow. Nope, not going to work. I'm going to change this to, Yeah. Okay. A lot of this is just experimenting. Hey, there's one way of doing it. So now when I paint, I'm getting. Is that what you're looking
Oh,
for?
that's cool.
And so you're painting
that
only
helps.
within the. This layer mode I chose was screen rather than multiply. Screen gets rid of it. So I'm on layer 1, it's screening it. Zoomed in.
Wow.
I'll zoom back out. Choose whatever color you want. So if I wanted to paint that part red, very quickly I'm painting him in red. If I wanted it to blend in with this, so there's that going together.
That helps.
So.
Yes.
A lot of the times it's, like I said, I was just sitting here playing around to be able to do it. But it's only affecting the black and white from
Okay.
that one. And all I did was set it up and then make a layer, change its mode, and work from
Okay. Thank you.
that. Anybody else have any ideas? Okay.
About this when you're done.
Okay, no problem.